So this is the pistol grip. When you externally rotate your own hand, it also externally rotates the shoulder of the other guy, drawing an internal circle this way towards the outside of your body. Wrist and his hand structure starts to open up. There's space in here. Technically, to get out of this, I could just do that. I want to control the guy with the joint lock. So what I do is I grab his bottom finger here, try really to grip really hard. It doesn't matter how hard he tries to grip. It's very easy for you to take that away. So from here, the thumb goes under, scoops the pinky off. I then grab onto his wrist structure, or I can choose to take the index finger, and that's what you call the double pistol grip, okay? And then from here, I advise to bring him down to the floor. Here you step underneath. I can rotate the elbow a little bit this way. I start to manipulate his body. If you want, you don't have to. At the same time, you can also just come up underneath in front of the elbow. Everyone's elbow and forearm are different sizes. John's a little bit hard for me to work with. Somehow he has very long arms, okay, compared to others. The point to consider is that at the end of the movement, you want to be underneath his armpit. So every time you do it, it's a little bit different. But essentially, you bring your hand up to say hello to John. You make your grip underneath the finger, and you position your arm to be tight and cuddled underneath his armpit. If you haven't made it into that position, you just take your other free arm and you move his elbow a little bit and then secure him. Again, you can reinforce with the double pistol grip. Practice nice and safe. The double-handed press defense. So everyone says, oh, but that's impossible. You can't be so fast as to catch someone. You're not really catching someone. The idea is when you push a human being, you're usually pushing them like this on the chest. Usually in most confrontations, this happens. So I know this already, so I train for that. So I put my hands up where I believe the individual will push me really hard, which means I'm not actually finding him. Actually, he's coming to me. That's the trick. So as he pushes, I go like this. And then I'm in a really great position. Maybe I will not grab the whole hand. Maybe I will grab 1 or 2 fingers. It's okay, at least I'll get something. Then the idea is you can choose to draw an arc over him, and you can then push down. Or you can choose to circle towards the outside and then push up. Yep. And you want to raise the guy up onto his toes. When he's up on his toes, he's in trouble, okay? And you can walk around with him wherever you want. It's no problem. You can do some circles, it's all good. So, and you can walk the guy all the way to the police station. So in the first video, you noticed that I pushed John's lower leg away. The reason for this is if the guy wants to punch. So I push him away like this to give some distance and safety from the punch. In the close-up, I take my clothing. The reason why I do this is because sometimes it adds a level of security, like you could be sweating. So it makes the surface of the opponent's skin more adhesive. And I push and I jam his thumb down in this direction, okay? And it very easily opens the guy up no matter how hard he grips. I then extract his little finger, and then what I want to do is I want to open the thumb and the little finger. Open it this way, and it separates and controls him, and you can really hurt the guy, so be nice and careful, okay? Nice and safe. So just explaining here, you have to turn the guy's hand over this way. How can you get someone to do that? Well, they could be holding you like this, his hand's already turned over, or he just punches, and you come in and you do whatever to, now his hand is turned over. Then you mobilize to get your hand into a position where you can use your thumb to hook that index finger. Then you take your forefinger and scoop it underneath his wrist. And then by rotating his hand this way, his body will turn away from you if you see his body, all right? Then from here, you lift your arm up, okay? And then you want to rotate your hand in this way. So if I rotate him in this way, there's the tap. So this one is interesting. It's a wrist lock, right? So here's the wrist lock. But first of all, we're getting out of it. So a lot of people, they can come over and work this way, and they can do a very small circle. It's much easier if you throw the guy's body up. In fact, if I just work up like this, the hand comes out quite easily. I take my other hand on there to support it. Then I control his fingers a little bit with my body, which controls the wrist. Then I place his hand on my body, and then I open up my chest. I open my chest this way, and I pull his arm in to control and apply the lock, okay? Be very careful, you can break the wrist. So for this one, you have to circle the guy's arm up, and you can make contact up here. You can also quickly make contact down here, or you can make contact and then circle. I like to do it at the same time. At the top here, just behind his ulna, okay, and his wrist. You don't want to grab the ulna or the hand structure by itself. You want to grab it in the middle. So you get the middle of your hand and you grab the joint structures between his hand and his ulna. And I start to twist and rotate here with both hands at the same time. I come underneath, and then here I grip him quite well, yeah? And then I start to bend and rotate here. He's already gonna snap here, okay? But then to put extra pressure, you bend the wrist at 90 degrees this way, or you can reverse and bend the wrist at 90 degrees, it's even worse, okay? Go to punch me as quick as you can.
Action.
So I try to explain something quickly. John goes to punch me. But if I do this, you see he's already controlled and he cannot punch me. Try to punch me, John. Okay, it's very hard. First I'm stepping out of his line. So I want to illustrate that this is good for when the guy wants to punch you. Even if his punch is making it, you can get here quicker and you can already throw away his base from him. And it's even if the guy hits you, it's going to be less damage than what it would be if he did hit you. So a lot of people, they can consider this. There's a couple ways to do this. A lot of people, they demonstrate to only work with the wrist, okay? And the wrist is good if you're very good at your angle and your anatomy. You can see the reaction is very quick and simple. I can even use two palms. I can push his wrist in and then just work with my body. But if you use your elbow and press his elbow against your body, bringing him in and then apply the wrist lock, you see my body has to do less, right? But if the elbow is out further, I have to do more work, okay? Or I have to work more on the angle of the joint. It's way easier if you use your body weight by putting your elbow on his, so you control his body weight. And then you can hold him in closer and work with the wrist, and the result is much finer. The reason is because when you put your body against his forearm, it takes away his ability to rotate. So John can rotate here, but it's not easy for him. But out here, if I just do the technique here, his ability to rotate is much easier, so he has more freedom. So I take away that freedom, then I apply the wrist lock, and it's much more direct. The result is better. Thank you, John. Okay, option one. I bring one hand over, one underneath. Here I can start to leverage and control his wrist. It opens up his body. Option is to grab the thumb this way and control the wrist up with the thumb, or I can secure myself with my own elbow by monkey gripping here and then pushing up here this way. So nice and safe with your friends, guys. It's dangerous. It's actually easier than doing something like this. This one is difficult, okay. What's hard about this one is that you have to control the guy's wrist to be already compromised, but if the elbow is bent, here, if John does the bend, you see the technique doesn't work. So the key is to get the guy's wrist and elbow straight. Then the technique can work. The body just cannot substantiate the mechanic. Okay, it's going to receive damage and the wrist will break. And the guy releases quite easily. So try nice and safe. So for this one, you cross one elbow underneath the other. And it's very easy to guide the guy in this way. If he tries to hold as hard as he can, it's okay, you just soften him up and you see it's very easy. You want to get above his elbow with your forearm, okay? Then you put pressure against the elbow. This is already enough. This is enough. You can put pressure against your body as well, okay? But from here I did a fancy lock where I grip on the outside of my wrist. And here I just turn like this a little bit and I squeeze in and I open up the rib cage at the same time. So he's quite well controlled. Be very careful, you can break the elbow easily. So from behind, you put a little bit of weight, you don't need too much. If you can get a good grip, it's good. If you can use your clothing to lock in his hands, it helps with your grip. But if not, just put a bit of pressure, just to hold him there, because if you don't and you turn, his arm can slip away, right? So you trap him a little bit like this. I turn and I rotate, and I bring my arm directly over this way. If I go this way, I can hit him here, but then I might break his elbow, and we start working this way. We don't want to work like that. So from here, I come directly over, and this puts a big stretch on his bicep, all right, and his forearm. All right, and then I bring him down this way, and you put pressure close to the elbow. If you go directly on the elbow, it's good, but you can slip off the elbow. So you go to the inside here, and then from there, you can grab anywhere you like underneath. You see I have his neck here, and you squeeze, and he'll tap, okay? So for those of you that are a little bit more scientifically minded or anatomically based, all right, if your anatomy is good, when I work on the elbow joint, relax John, don't stiffen please. If I do this one, you see it's taking his joint to the point of destruction. You have to be very good, and you have to have a good understanding of anatomy to not hurt the guy, so be very careful. At the same time as doing this, I combine this technique here. So I'm doing two at once. It looks like I'm just straightening his elbow in the video and then applying pressure on the wrist this way, but I'm not. You cannot see it's a subtle movement. I'm breaking the elbow, and then at the same time I'm pushing straight so that he cannot substantiate the pressure. The brain sends a response to protect the elbow, and it tells him to go backwards. And then at the same time I assist his body to go backwards by putting pressure on the wrist at the same time. It's very dangerous, okay? As that happens, from here, look what I've done strategically. I've brought this wrist close to my other hand. So I'm bringing this one in close so that I can grab it, okay? So I've gone one, and look, his hand is already here. I then grasp, take the fingers, I go underneath the elbow, I rotate, whatever angle he's in, it doesn't matter, then I bring him up and I put pressure on the wrist. We call this an elbow technique because we're locking the elbow in close to the body. I can bring him up, I can bring him down, okay. So first of all, I use my chest and I open my chest to put pressure on the elbow. And because the elbow doesn't want to break, his brain sends a message for him to follow, to go this way, or else the elbow will break. So from here, if applied pressure is enough. So I can use my shoulder or my arm, depending on the length of his arm, or I can use my chest, okay? I can also grab him here and bring him closer and then work with the elbow with my chest. There's many options how to do it. So anyway, I brought John forward in the video. Then I want him to come back because he might get balance or stability from going too far this way. So I trick him and I send him the other way by jerking quickly on his forearm and elbow joint. And it throws him back. If there's a wall behind, you can sometimes hit the guy into the wall. Then from there, I bring my arm up and out of the bridge of his elbow flexor. And then I use my skin against his skin and I roll. And when you roll him this way, his body just follows. You can do it slowly, rapidly, however you want. And then I slightly pull his arm back this way, because when you extend the elbow joint in this manner and then press up, it's very easy to break it, okay? If it's in and I bring it up, you see. So here, to break his body posture and his strength a little bit, I rotate my body this way. So I'm working with his shoulder actually, okay, and his torso and his waist. So I quickly move like this. Then I put pressure on his elbow here as I circle up. Okay, you see how this affects his body. Then from here, I rotate as I've now broken the wrist hold, okay? I now use the elbow and the wrist at the same time. I turn him over. I slide my left arm up his arm. Then I can put pressure on his elbow. I can do it with my hand, my forearm. I can do it with my own body. I can do however I want. I can maybe crack him in the face before and bring him down. As I do this, the body will go down to the floor. You can put your knee up on the shoulder, help bring him down. You can then put your hand up behind his back, and then you can apply a wrist hold, or you can put pressure with the elbow against your own tibia, okay? And you can control, and you can see the elbow will nicely break, okay? Or be held and controlled. Okay, nice and safe, guys. So this one you don't see too often. Understand that the shoulder is one of the most comprehensively dynamic joints in the human body. It can be dislocated in very easily. Okay, so you have to be very careful when you're training. What I do is when I get control of the guy's arm, you can see the shoulder is moving very good, right? So you do whatever you do to get the guy to move around into this position. And then what I do is I place my shoulder underneath his scapula. You see when I push underneath the scapula and I pull back a little bit this way, look what it does to his shoulder joints, right? Puts it in a very compromised position. And then I use my legs to stand up. So I just demonstrate, I get a little bit underneath. I can use the underneath the elbow or in front of the elbow, okay? And you lever down this way and with your legs you pull up and he taps quite quickly. Another good tip is nothing is ideal in combat, right? But another good idea is to try to not keep your body side on when you do this technique because he can roll out very easy. Like his body can roll this way, right? So what I do is I try to go back to back. And the more that I'm back to back, it's really hard. He cannot roll out. Can you roll out, Alex? No. If the guy tries to roll out, I just add a little bit more pressure. Okay, it's impossible for him to escape because he can feel his shoulder will dislocate. So however you get into the position, it doesn't matter. The critical thing is that the center of your chest is behind the shoulder, right? Then you use this arm to come over and push his neck out of the way so that you can control the position of the shoulder a little bit better. If you don't control the neck, right, it's very hard to get the shoulder in the middle of the sternum. Then I want the arm to externally rotate. External rotation means supination, right? So that means the palm faces up. The reason why that happens is because we want the elbow facing down just to put the shoulder joint into a more compromised position. So when that happens, this is already enough to tap the guy to hurt his shoulder, right, John?
Yep.
Yeah? But at the same time, if you don't want to use your grip strength too much, you don't have to. You can also use your arm like this. It's possible, all right? But instead of putting pressure on the elbow, we want to focus on the shoulder. And so what I do is I do this sneaky grip behind here. I can come underneath his armpit if I find it. I can grab onto underneath his clothing, underneath the back of his arm here so that he's held quite tight. And then I open up my rib cage. So when you open your rib, when you have the guy, you open your rib cage like so, okay? And then I can also, if I want to, reach behind and grab onto my own clothing and do a monkey grip. And then from there, I can pop his shoulder. Okay, nice and safe, guys. So the idea of this technique is we're controlling with the shoulder and the body knows, the brain knows that the shoulder cannot break. But we're also kind of using the tug of the shoulder and the disconnection between the arm and the structure of the body to take advantage of throwing the opponent off balance or knocking him over, right? So what we want to do, the idea is to get the guy to turn 180 degrees so that his back is facing us. Or what you can do is just do a little spin, right? Get the guy to spin as much as possible. I like to combine the two. That means I have to flank a little bit, right? So I start off by pulling him in this direction, so his brain starts to resist or deal with that combatively. Then, without him understanding what's going on next, I start to rotate his body, right? Clockwise. I take this hand and put it on this shoulder. I've stepped behind him, as you can see, and now all I have to do is with my right hand is just tug his shoulder, because you see he's off balance and leaning backwards. I just have to tug very quickly, and it's not so hard, it's soft. I wait and I feel with my own sensitivity the tension within his body. I can determine, is the guy off balance, and then I can determine how much tension is required to take the guy down, right? So, for example, you see, it requires just a finger push to take the guy down sometimes. You have to be aware of how much is required, and you don't need to rip the shoulder out when you do this. It's a soft technique. So you bring... Okay. So here we're trying to work with the guy when he commits weight behind the press, okay? And then I draw my shoulder back at the critical moment, and then I do a fast response, a forward movement like this. The movement is complex, but I hollow my body so that the hand is forced into a cupped structure. So here the hand is in a safe position, right, when the hand is flat. but we don't have too much flexibility going back this way. So what I do is I mold my body and my shoulder like so, and it's very hard. It starts to put a lot of pressure on the wrist to the point where if I do this, it's very easy to control the guy and send him back. So if someone pushes you, you just try to find the good cup position at the critical moment. And the more that you draw the guy in, the more you can have the effect. You see, it's much more effective the more he's drawn in. But if you want a very sharp, hard, this one is devastating. When you do it hard and sharp, you okay, John? When you do it hard and sharp, you put a lot of pressure on the wrist here. It's very easy to pop and break things in the wrist, okay? So you have to be very careful when you're working with the wrist and when you're working with this technique. You can combine this technique and apply it for many other things. For example, when this shoulder is going down here, I can come and start to work through here. Okay, so what you're doing with this one is you're arcing your shoulders up and back, and you're trying to get your right scapula to sit on the top of John's arm. And what I do is I now roll John's arm, right? So there I am, and I roll John, and then I get to the back of John very easy, very quickly. So I show again one more time slowly. So from here, as I roll John this way, I bring my arm over, then I come underneath John, and then I'll switch around here. Thank you, John. Then I'll lock on here with my own arms, and I'll lift and expand my rib cage and pop the shoulder.